Alright. Only two packages, but it's all that evil packaging that I just find that. Open that. One. Oh. Okay, yeah, that's mostly familiar. And then this. So on the top here we have Season 1, Part 2 of Higurashi when they cry Gou. I want to say Gou, but that's not what it is. I mean, maybe I should just say it wrong if I'm going to be wrong, right? Don't close your eyes, this is not a dream. Let's see, I see regions A and B. English dub. It's 12 episodes. Because go all the way down there. Okay, this is one of those annoying plastics that doesn't quite come apart in the right way. Alright. Now, I never did finish watching part 1. But I guess part of the problem is I wasn't a big enough fan of the series to remember all the story arcs from the first series to compare what this series was actually doing new with that stuff. And I guess the form of horror that is Higurashi barely worked for some of my interests. Well, anyways, next up we have Josie, the tiger, and the fish, which looks like a guy and a possibly disabled girl. It looks like a wholesome slice of life. And a very annoying sticker, original soundtrack and Funimation digital copy included. Of course, you can't take the sticker off. Oh, I felt like I made a little progress there. There we go. That's not a Venus flytrap. Some sort of sunflower or something like that. Together they can fly. Maybe quite literally. Although, is that underwater? Short story. So is this a movie? This is a movie. Regions A and B. There's an English dub. It looks very touching, and there's a different thing on the inside. Just too bad I don't spend the time to actually watch most of these movies, huh? If I get them, I'm like, oh, this looks neat, but I think y'all could probably list a bunch of movies with like this. Giga, just spend an hour on it. Watch it and it'd be great, and it'd be... And I still haven't. Okay, well, I guess the plastic's going wherever it wants to. It decided to go under where my feet were, so whatever. It's a lot more discs than I expected. Because this one is a Blu-ray, this one's a DVD, and this is a CD. So this is a soundtrack. And then we have Person, who I'm guessing is main girl. I'm guessing she's main girl based on this. So he might be main guy, he might be main girl. Holy, did I put this together and leave the insert right there? I did. Oh! Well, here we go. Problem solved. Next up we have Gintama, the very final Blu-ray DVD. So yeah, that one was Blu-ray DVD plus digital. And this one was released... Who was this released by? Shop Factory. It's less common. Unfortunately, I'm so very far behind Gintama that I'm not sure what me having this means other than the collector's portion of it. I should check to see if Gintama is actually on Crunchyroll, huh? Geez. I might actually be able to catch up on that if it has all of it. Well, now I'm kind of hoping it does. Gintama, the very final. Ooh, character designs. I saw some familiar characters. Here we got the DVD, here we got the Blu-ray, and here we've got Crystal Ball. It shows that dog thing. Yeah, I hope that author is proud, because my understanding they called it Gintama because they wanted people to say Gintama, and it's maybe not the thing. Anyways, Hidamari sketch, Cyan Hero graduation. I'm so far behind on Hidamari's sketch that this Blu-ray is pretty much already opening itself. That was actually very pleasant. Region A, Japanese with English subtitles. Focus, please. That includes 2 episodes on 1 disc. 2 OVA episodes. So it's a small thing but for anybody completing their Hidamari sketch collection, this is probably nice to have come out. Next up, we got Mushi Bugyo. This is the complete OVA collection. I don't know what to make of this, because a lot of this looks great, but that's a very strange face. It's more reminiscent of something from the 90s. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does make it harder to read what the anime is they're trying to do. In fact, if I look at the back, maybe I missed the fact that this is an older release. Probably not Best Control Samurai style. So, Bugyo. Feudal Japan, the Edo period. Okay, I see Japanese with English subtitles. Includes all 3 OVAs on 1 disc, so it's not that long of a watch. Might be a nice, silly little thing to just watch. See, that's a weird face, because that doesn't even look like 90s style. Interesting. Curiosity. And then last but not least is Grenadier. I don't think I'm putting the emphasis on the right parts. This is a complete collection on Blu-ray. And y'all can hear there's some loose plastic of some sort in there. Looking at the back, what can we discern? 13 and older. Some of that makes sense. 1080p English and Japanese stereo, so it has the audio dub. This is a Media Blasters release. I feel that missing. That explains the loose plastic. Oh, nice. It's different underneath the slipcover. Yeah, Media Blasters releases, but it's nice that they paid attention to that. Okay, let's move all this plastic to somewhere where I'll throw it away. Oop, just going underneath the camera here, and then we'll take a peek. Yeah, I don't remember much about the series itself, other than I do remember she reloaded her gun bouncing the bullets off of her breasts, which is why I'm thinking 13 plus. Yeah, I guess maybe it makes sense if they want to have that kind of humor. What else do I remember about it? I don't remember it being bad, but maybe just nothing about it that stood out to me. Oh well. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. Okay, let's see. To start off with my Friday friend, we watched the first disc of Demon Slayer. You know, we didn't go particularly fast. And for him, he was getting suggestions from coworkers to watch it, which is a good suggestion. It's not that it's a bad series, it's just... It's a good series, but it's hard to tell what will definitely work and not work and what we should focus on. Sometimes we just go lazy with isekai. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I've got the camera pointed a little lower than I intended to. But anyways, Demon Slayer. So I know that I had like things about it that I complained about, especially in the second volume. But it starts out very good for sure. I think the biggest problem overall, and you don't necessarily get that in the first episode, is the younger sister is criminally underutilized. Like, this show really works because it's both the brother and the sister, and the brother can form something that's
kind of your standard shonen arc sort of thing, but the sister is an interesting kind of balance to that sort of stuff, and you know, at least as the series begins, it's not that bad because she's kind of there doing whatever. But I just remember that, like, unfortunately, in order to have the series spending more time on him doing his shonen-y sort of stuff, there ends up being less of the sister, even though she's kind of the one that's the interesting, turning everybody's understanding of the world on their heads kind of character. You know, normally it's really great when the main character is multiple kinds, it fulfills multiple roles like that, but this show is really good because it kind of separated those out and gave them very well-defined roles. And that's not present this early in the series' first disc, which may have only been the first 4 episodes. You know, it's a pretty fun stuff. Pretty nice, pretty good. I think the most complaining I heard was that our main character is whiny and weak, and I think the show knew that. He starts out in a very whiny, weak place, and it's all about him getting better. Right? It's a standard trope. But yeah, beyond that, pretty much everything I've watched has been off Crunchyroll. You know, I do have, like, I put Log Horizon on the pile of stuff that's super important to watch here, but I just haven't gotten around to it, because maybe I rewatched the old Log Horizon, maybe? I don't know. Well, let's see. Notable things I did watch. So, I finished watching Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid S. You know, that's Season 2. And I also watched the series of shorts that Crunchyroll queued up next. And it was great. I've talked about how the series is pretty wholesome and how Season 2, it didn't seem to be doing it as much as I remembered Season 1 doing. But the later half of Season 2 was definitely pretty far up there. If I were to try to introduce, like, my parents to Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, I may actually go for some Season 2 episodes. Really great stuff. Really great series overall. I'm actually kind of sad that I don't have that, because it was a good going to bed show, because even when it had those moments where it's just like, haha, Quetzalcoatl has huge boobs or whatever, it still was doing very wholesome, very relaxing sorts of things that are just like, this is a pleasant way to go to bed. But the series had to come to an end eventually. I could potentially rewatch it in order to get that stuff, but I've got a lot of other stuff to watch. Let's see, I picked back up I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Max Leveled. You may recall that I started that, and while some people encouraged me to continue watching it, I could kind of feel that it wasn't satisfying what I wanted, and I felt it was the same through the remainder of the first season. I really like the character designs, but I really don't like... Yeah, I guess the reason I didn't move forward in the episode is because the next episode I was on literally begins with characters assuming that these little things are, oh, this character is probably about to leave us and go away forever, so we'll just throw a surprise party without actually communicating and figuring out. And it's just like... To me, that not only does it make sense, it felt very out of character for some of those characters. Like, if it was the elf girl making that mistake, that's her character trait. And when she does that, it actually works out. It's funny. But the other characters doing it because of stuff she's doing is a little more iffy, I guess. Not, like, bad, but I guess it just... The series lacked something important to keep me engaged. Now, I know that's kind of weird because, you know, here I am having watched the entire series, but, yeah. And I don't know that I found anything about it specifically that I would call, oh yeah, I felt like, you know, this season was building, or the series was building up to this, so it's whatever. The Fruit of Evolution, it's interesting because I would say that it's more disappointing than Killing Slimes, but most of that is because it actually was doing stuff that I would consider to be good in its own very weird way. So, again, most of the disappointment I have for that series just comes from it's setting itself up for some great potential, but not really following up on it. A lot of the characters it introduces, their introductions are actually pretty great. I guess if we go with the character Saria as an example, this is one of those medieval fantasy isekai sort of things where our main character is building up a harem. And that shouldn't be very surprising because it's pretty easy to tell from the opening that that's the goal. But the problem I found was, first of all, as the series went and it was going to introduce more and more girls, it kind of started getting more lax with its introducing of them. There was really good build-up for them, even if it was really weird and strange and different, but it was different good, I would say. But a lot of the problem is, once the girl was on the team, it's almost like the show conveniently forgot about them. And it's maybe not just that it's forgetting about the girls. Like, it seems to be forgetting about we, the audience. If we want to have an understanding that the show's trying to emphasize how much our main character is growing, we have to get good comparison. But it's hard to get good comparison, especially against known things or maybe even possibly unknown things. It shirks a little bit on that responsibility. And Saria is a really good example because there's a whole lot of dynamic stuff that's set up there, which also potentially sets up future other things that don't actually happen as well as you would think they would. It's more like a one-off thing instead of a recurring theme, whereas this show would have been probably better if there was some sort of recurring theme going on. And I don't know if I want to talk about that stuff too much just because that might be spoiler, but the idea is, once she's there and you kind of understand why she would be kind of cool and awesome, like cool and awesome as a fighter, and also kind of this surprisingly heartwarming personality despite the character's origins. Basically, after that, you don't really see any fighting potential, even though we really should be getting that as a metric as we go forward, because it's supposed to set her up as kind of more like a party mate, but instead it's more him doing stuff, kind of. And again, when he's doing stuff, they're not doing it in just a way that's like us definitely always measuring stuff. Sometimes it's just silly, whimsical, and arbitrary, which can be different. Like I said, the series is doing something very different, and that's really great. But it also kind of means that it feels like it's missing something important. And with her, yeah, again, we didn't really get to see much of what the series thought about what her combat stuff would be until near the end. And for her cool personality stuff, that kind of came and went. Sometimes she was just a person following our main character, but then every once in a while she says something that's just like, that's a very refreshing attitude to see somebody take. So it was definitely a strange show. I could see why it's rated kind of where it is, where I guess it's kind of a good but flawed, and yeah, that seems to be a pretty good description of it. And let's see, I was dumb enough to not mark, but the series I've started and I'm 14 episodes into, so I've seen 14 episodes, is To My Eternity. Unless I'm getting the name wrong, I really should have jotted it down on my notes on the left over here. If I'm getting the name wrong, it's basically about an orb whose purpose is to gather information, and it's kind of an observing the world kind of show, sort of. Well, it starts off that way. So in some ways, I think it kind of has similar vibes to Wolf Rain. Not exactly the same, but there's something about it that feels very similar, where our orb becomes a wolf at the beginning, and so it being a wolf kind of sitting there watching things, feels like that sort of stuff. Even though it's not exactly the same, so I'm not saying if you like the Wolf Rains you'd like To My Eternity or vice versa, but there's definitely a little bit of that vibe in the beginning. It's definitely telling something else, building something else. And it's been pretty great. It's got some pretty touching moments to it. Not the kind of touching moments that I think you'd want to watch before going to bed, but just the sort of things that are like, okay, wow, huh, I'm Songbird. If that makes sense. It's been a great show so far, and I do want to finish watching it. I guess if I'm trying to think if there's any weakness of it, it's that it's neither episodic nor is it completely continuous story. So like, it begins feeling like it may be episodic, where it's, oh, this is his experience, this is his next experience, this is next. Maybe something like Mushishi, but it's definitely telling a continuous narrative, but it still kind of has a flow that feels reminiscent of story to story, sort of. So it's in a weird balance point. And I think if you watch it expecting one or the other, you'll probably be disappointed, or if you're very specifically hoping for one versus the other, you could be disappointed. But overall, it's been pretty good. Let's see. Now that Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid has been finished in there, I've done a thing I actually speculated about last week, and I've started watching episodes of Princess Connect, and so far it's been pretty good. You know, little... I think my idea is about right, where because I don't have a feel for that show having a good, this is the direction the characters are taking, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they get there. It feels like it's definitely a much funnier, or maybe not funny is always the right word, it's definitely just an overall entertaining episode per episode thing, I guess. We'll I'll have to see, because now that Miss Kobayashi's is done, that's my default going to bed show, because it tends to be a little more lighthearted in what it's doing. Other than that, there's also the series that I've been keeping up with. So Life with an Order Guy Who Reincarnated as a Fantasy Knockout. You know, that continues to be funny. Yes. This one did have a combat thing in it, and I thought the way it handled it was very amusing. In the Land of Leedale also had a combat thing, and this one, it's interesting because a couple episodes back I was talking about how it did something that's like, holy shit, they really did that. Oh my god. And this one didn't have anything like that, but it did have things that are just like, this is giving me pause, so I'm wondering why the main character isn't, like, hesitant because of some of this information learned. And I don't want to say too much, because it's an ongoing series, and maybe y'all are planning to watch it and haven't watched it yet, but overall, you know, I'm continuing to find it to be pretty entertaining. Although I think I'm not as interested in our main character. I think the thing I'm finding the most fun about it is the fact that our main character is sort of related to other characters. It was an adoption system, but it was an adoption system that happened a couple hundred years prior to this moment in this show, even though that may not have actually happened. The exact nature of our main character's existence in there is one that is not very well determined. Much similar to Overlord as of Season 3, where it's just like, we kind of understand that something has happened, but why? What's the exact rules, the nature, the reasoning, etc.? Those aren't really there. And it's really not about whether or not they're there, because information isn't being found out. It's being presented as if certain things about reality are the way they are. And so, yeah, our main character is related. They've got some family relations within the show, and it's just kind of amusing seeing most of those interactions as they spread out, I feel. Because the fact that she's overpowered has been good the way they've used it. They've used it kind of sparingly, and somehow it doesn't feel like they've overdone themselves. It's still, it feels like they've established it so they can just pull it out of their trick hat whenever they want to, and kind of make stuff up as they go. So it's not quite at Overlord levels, because I think Overlord has the same sort of stuff, but Overlord works out because it realizes it needs a transition kind of quickly into how the world is reacting to our main character. Leedale's at least starting kind of there to a good degree. And then finally, My Dress Up Darling, latest episode, pretty great. I think I mentioned before how I was saying one thing that I would consider a weakness to it is that it needs more character interactions. Not necessarily to meddle with what's going on, but to kind of give anchoring for what's going on. And they kind of gave that. Like, I think I'd like to see more characters, friends, characters and stuff, and a lot of that stuff started coming together, so it wasn't just this interaction between our two main characters through the thing. And their dynamic has been not exactly shooken up, but it has been, you know, mixed together in place, so to speak, to make for the series to continue to be interesting at this point. So far, you know, it's a slice of life romantic. I don't even think you can call it romantic comedy. It's been pretty good. So, is there anything else? Nothing else comes to mind. I don't even think I have anything particularly interesting to mention about Dead by Daylight. So, maybe that means I end the video here. I hope y'all had a nice Valentine's Day and y'all have a nice week.